So far, they got into a couple of fights, and that was just before they arrived at their destination. The palanquin bearer announced that they were entering Dahuating, or Grand Flower Hall, now. Dante saw that it wasn't long before their arrival to a new place within Daguan Huan. Which was made known by the bearer's sonorous announcement. This was a bit overwhelming to Heathcliff, asking what Dahuating means. Honglu told him that, well, what it meant, and that it was a place for banquets. Gregor wasn't sure what to make of them hosting banquets in that village-sized venue. Sinclair asked if that was a lake over there. Honglu told him no, it was a pond. This was impressive to Gregor. Honglu told them that once they arrive, they'll find themselves at a welcoming party for both himself and Jia Sijun. He told Rodia that she'll be able to stuff herself to her heart's content this time. It's been a while since she's done this. Rodia, at the thought of eating a large amount of food, made it clear that it's been a while since she was this excited. Ishmael, the experienced sailor, noticed that he had a ship. Honglu confirmed this. Sometimes they went boating. Jia Sijun's building was right across the pond. Dante was uncomfortable with the idea that they each have a building of their own. Honglu confirmed this. When he first left Hongguan, he found the concept of an entire family living under the same roof as fascinating. I suspect it's likely to reduce the risk of the entire family being assassinated. Well, if assassins decide to attack a building, and they succeed, the ability to wipe out an entire family is much more difficult. Don Quixote was troubled by this, seeing it as quite a challenge to see each other. Honglu cheerfully told her that it's why they each get a building. Ishmael asked if they were talking about the same thing. Don Quixote lamented that they could have had a vacation at his home this whole time. Honglu told her that it wouldn't have worked. When he left home, his grandmother and the elders really impressed upon him that the footsteps shall eventually bring him home when the time is right. Thus, witness, and only witness, as much of the world as you may before you make your return. He wondered what that could be, or rather when that could be, but time really slipped through his fingers, and just like that, it brought him there. Dante understood that most didn't welcome their return. Some were even terrified of it. Sinclair and Ishmael certainly were. Sometimes they had to, confront what they've been avoiding all their lives. That was definitely the case with Heathcliff. For some, important things that were once forgotten or lost were waiting for their return, such as Don Quixote regarding her past as a blood fiend. Their reluctance wasn't surprising at all. Dante didn't think that they'd welcome an opportunity to get their memories back with open arms, if it was thrust upon them. Especially if they were dragged there against their will. Why not? That's how it started, didn't it? Despite knowing that he was next, Honglu was as tranquil as he always was, as aloof as even. Regardless of what happened, why should this time be any different? Although Dante can't judge so hastily. The bearer announced that Jia Bayu had returned. This full-throated announcement was followed by the door opening. Honglu then invited them in. He left as the others were shocked by the astronomical levels of opulence on display. Yi Sang saw it as quite the light-footed steps he was taking, without excitement or trepidation. Sinclair noticed this as well. Heathcliff believed that Honglu wasn't affected because he was used to this. Don Quixote nervously believed that it was a subtle expression of him wanting to see his family again. Once they left the palanquin, Yi Sang was overwhelmed by the vastness and those splendid objects around him. Ishmael asked how many servants did they have. Honglu then mentioned that his grandmother will visit them once Zoo Hour arrived. That's when the banquet would start. Dante wanted to know what Zoo Hour was. Faust explained that it's the time between 1900 hours and 2100 hours, a unique time system used in some parts of the east of the city. Now, this is the hour of the dog in the Chinese zodiac. It's used in China, Japan, and Korea. This is including a 12-hour system that divides 24 hours into 12 hours, one for each part of the zodiac. Faust also made it clear that Jiamu, Honglu's grandmother, is the hierarch of Daguan Yuan, the ruler of Hongguan. Uotis understood this to mean that Honglu is a relative of one that is in charge of H-Corps. Only the head is above her and others that are in charge of their districts. Honglu confirmed this. Yes, she was right. But she'll be handing that over to the next heir soon. Uotis asked, why now? What does she seek to achieve by abdicating at that time? Uotis saw an ulterior motive. Honglu told her that she's been saying that her time would eventually come, that she's carried that responsibility for too long. Ishmael understood that she'd be pretty shocked to hear that he'll be taking part in the family hierarch war. Honglu believed that she'll take it well. There's never been a reason for him to bother participating, but there wasn't a reason for him not to either. Dante was silent at this. Then Sinclair saw Jia Sichun and Wei. They both arrived safely. They briefly glanced at them, then looked away with disinterest. Sinclair noticed this. Ishmael noted that it didn't take long for things to get super awkward. Don Quixote, not understanding this, believed that they should sit down next to Jia Sichun. Gregor saw it as too late. They're forever banned from getting anywhere near her. Don Quixote failed to comprehend why. Faust made it clear that they are no longer part of Jia Sichun's faction, so her hostility is to be expected. Mersault saw that things had changed, us versus them. Uotis saw that deception and treachery were natural parts of war. An ally today might as well be an enemy tomorrow. Ishmael saw it as a funny way of saying, I don't have any friends. And this annoyed Uotis. Well, sometimes it's better to have no allies than allies you can't entirely rely upon. Then Honglu saw his parents had arrived. Heathcliff was nervous as they're just walking up to them, asking for their names at least. Honglu told him that his father's name is Jia Zheng. Jia Zheng. Yes, that's the more correct way of pronouncing that, and they call his mother Lady Wang. Yeah, expect a lot of flowery language here. Honglu greeting his parents for the first time since he left. He returned home. Jia Zheng noted that he was early. Lady Wang believed there had been too many years to see him after so long. It was good to see his face. She didn't know what to say. Then Jia Zheng eyes they darted nervously between them and Hong Lu, while Lady Wang gingerly brought Hong Lu in for a careful embrace. As if this was deeply moving, the pure joy of reunion, Hong Lu thanked them for their hospitality, certainly sparing no expenses. Lady Wang asked who he's come there with. Hong Lu cheerfully told her that while there aren't too many of them, they're the friends that he made out in that world. Ishmael made a dig at Heathcliff, saying that at least Hong Lu didn't introduce them as his lackeys. This made Heathcliff feel awkward. Dante then saw Lady Wang approach them. It was weird to say, but it was as if she was looking down at each of them, one by one. She was apparently so glad to meet them all, as Bayou was always such a stubborn child. She was sure that he was quite the handful to accompany them on their journeys. She hopes that they can still embrace him despite every... Ishmael questioned what she meant by Hong Lu being stubborn, having not known this previously. This surprised Jia Zheng and Lady Wang, and not in a good way. She asked Bayou, why does he allow them to call them by that name? What of his noble blessed name, bestowed upon him by the revered Zhanren, their elders? Zhanren meaning a great person of the past, a venerable forebear, the great and the good, which in this case is defined by the elders. Heathcliff wanted to know what was going on. Hong Lu then reached out and gently and indifferently held his mother's violently trembling hands. Hong Lu told her that, of course he would. It was because his name was too noble. Sorry. Yes, his name was too noble. And Lady Wang understood why he did that, as she saw his name as too noble, and Gregor wasn't sure what the problem was. Roger reminded him that in District 16, Wei called Hong Lu young Master Bayou. Ishmael also reminded them of when he had a duel on the way there. He introduced himself as Bayou of the Jia family, although at that time she thought it was a pseudonym. Heathcliff was struggling to keep up, believing calling him by his real name wouldn't cheapen the nobility. Hong Lu surprisingly agreed with him, even though others would believe that saying it too many times would depreciate its value. Jia Zheng saw it as wise for him not to use his true name, as did Lady Wang, as it would attract unwanted attention from those that might want him dead. Faust backed them up on this. Yi Sang saw names as repositories of their keeper's origins. In the eastern region of the city, when parents name their children, they imbue them with meaning, carrying their wish for their children's place and use in that world. Ryushu, likely from the eastern part of the city as well, just not from District 8, asked Hong Lu what his name meant. Hong Lu told them that his name is the accumulation of wishes not only from his parents but those of many more. It meant that he was born with a precious jade. Ishmael understood that this is what Bayou meant. Ryushu thought it was an awful name, seeing Hong Lu as better. Sinclair whispered to her that she could at least try to whisper. Heathcliff decided to call him Hong Lu, stating that he'd rather take a punch from Virgilius than call him young Master Bayou. This caused the servant to look at them in a horrific gaze. Hong Lu decided to let them call him what they want. Then a reticent servant asked them to be seated. The food would be served soon. And there was a lot of it, which was a shock to Heathcliff. Ishmael asked if they actually expected them to eat all that. Well, Roger can try. Dante didn't think that they could ever be intimidated by food, even considering they can't eat it. Seeing mountains of dishes on the table, asking if this was to flaunt their wealth rather than to feed them. Why not? That was the purpose of the grand banquets of Versailles, to show the greatness of France to nobility, theatre through food, where the king and queen ate what they wanted, and what they didn't eat, the nobles would finish off. While more private meals were more reasonable amounts. Roger loved what she was seeing, asking if she could ask for refills. The reticent servant, possibly unnerved by her appetite, nervously confirmed that she could. Dante then asked what the empty seats over there were for. Were they still killing time for more guests to arrive? Honglu didn't think so, seeing them as seats for his older siblings, likely not wanting to attend, seeing it as a waste of their time to attend, as it was a banquet to welcome him. Gregor hoped that they had a busy schedule to miss this. Gregor, have you not been keeping up? From what Honglu said about his family, they're unbelievably toxic. They're likely on their best behavior right now. Then the reticent servant announced the venerated Jamu, as did the refined servant. This silenced all present. They all rose to their feet and bowed or knelt on all fours, backs bent so low that their foreheads were nearly touching the floor. That woman walking out from between them, it made the crowd get out of her way from her presence. This was Honglu's grandmother, H Corp's family hierarch and its chief executive director. Dante saw that her presence as warm, gentle, yet immense and overwhelming, like the personification of an insurmountable mountain. The crowd told her that they were graced by her presence, which included Lady Wang. Roger was unsure of what to do, asking if they should bow as well. Gregor didn't think that she should bow any lower with her face halfway in the bowl, so she should be fine. Sinclair saw that she was surrounded by Haishu as well. Yeah, she's clearly the one in charge of District 8, so she's probably had a few assassination attempts by this point. Dante told them that everything would be fine as long as they didn't do anything stupid. You've heard them, Heathcliff. As all others were bowing before her, awed and humbled, only Honglu looked straight at Jamu without bowing. He got up from his seat and walked towards her, saying that it's been a while. Jamu's servant asked him to ascend. Dante, understanding that special permission was needed to stand next to her, as Honglu only moved closer when the servant cleared it, likely to make it harder to assassinate her. Jamu understood that Bayu must have walked and toiled tirelessly on his journey home. Honglu apparently didn't at all, although he was able to learn so many new things, thanks to everyone who treated him so nicely. Jamu told him that had he sought to master the art of learning, no master, regardless of pursuit, would have been out of his reach. Or rather their reach. His family's. He could have learned much in the halls of erudition from them, which explains the Dicey Association's identity's reasons for joining them. Although the world taught from sheets of paper was simply that, words on paper. They wished to learn more of the secular world, to not let time slip through his fingers. Honglu knew that this opportunity was more than what he deserved. Jiamu appreciated his return all the same, at the time before her abdication of the great responsibility of running H-Core. Don Quixote, while having a mouthful of food, understood that Honglu signed up for the Gran Turismo or the Grand Tour. Basically, he signed up for fun. Rodia, also with a mouthful of food, asked what was that. Otis was angered by their lack of table manners, asking them to stop babbling with their mouths full. Don Quixote explained this, adding that this was before they do their public activities. Massault was more detailed by saying that the purpose is to learn the varied experiences that can't be gained through books, to grow familiar with the world outside. Meanwhile, Jiamu asked Honglu if he met with Jia Sichun not that long ago. Honglu confirmed this. Jiamu saw her as a bright child, well prepared to take on the challenges of the family hierarchy evaluations. She at least presumes that much. Honglu agreed, sure that Jia Sichun will wisely overcome them. Having seen that she was able to take on the horrors of La Mancha Land and survive the night in the back streets. And yet, despite all that, she lives. Jiamu agreed, asking if he's paid a visit to the revered elders. He intended to. She then told Lady Wang to ascend as well, which she did. Jiamu understood that it caused her great distress to have her only son leave home, to wander the world beyond the hedges. That implies that Jia Huan is Honglu's half-brother, same father, different mothers. Lady Wang denied this. She was simply glad that her son had returned as a man who can now carry his own weight, and unharmed too. Lady Wang then didn't mean to rush, but when was Honglu planning to depart again? Honglu told her that nothing had been decided yet, which in this case meant that it depends on when Limbus Company wants him to leave, and that won't be until after his business in Hongwan is concluded. Lady Wang was simply concerned. Was his stay... were his stay to be prolonged, he might fade before his duties were completed. She then told him to complete his duties and return soon, so that the agreement that that Jiamu had so The agreement that Lady Mu had so graciously made for them was fulfilled. Jiamu agreed, lose not, forget nothing. He is their family's one and only jade, their peerless treasure. He should stay no longer in that mundane world than he has to. Leave when the time is right and fulfill his worth. Honglu told her that he would. Okay, before we move on, lose not, forget nothing. That's a quote from the carving on Jia Bayu's jade in the source material, Dream of the Red Chamber. Right, now that I've gone through that part, let's continue this. Dante thought that the damned dozen were doomed to chew uncomfortably through their incredibly awkward meal, but Jiamu and her retinue of Haishu left the banquet after that exchange, as if there was no more reason to be there. Yisang saw it as odd that they'd ask about his plans to leave on the welcoming of his return. Ishmael saw that too. One moment it appeared that they cared about him, then Massault saw that the appearance of care was quite distinct and unusual compared to the typical display of emotional intimacy. Emotional intimacy expressed in average households. Then an unfamiliar, chipper voice hopped jovially into their conversation. She was annoyed that he didn't come to see her first. She was staying in the same building over since he departed. Honglu saw that it had been long to Zui Baochai. She'd come all the way to his welcome banquet for the seats. He appreciated that. She would have summoned everyone she could from her family to see him, had she known that he'd be coming that day. Her older brother Pan wanted to know how he was doing. Jia Sichun wasn't so sure, at least not about the intent of Zui Pan. Zui Baochai asked who else had greeted him. Honglu replied that only his parents and his grandmother. She understood that she's the first from the Zui family. She said this cheerfully as she leaned close up to his eye, seeing his jade as always so glimmering and pristine. She made a necklace in the same color as his eye and wore it every single day to constantly remind herself of him, asking if he sees it. And Hongdu did, thanking her for remembering him. Rodia asked Honglu to introduce her to the others. Gregor wanted her to let this nice reunion play out, but Rodia refused to back down. Honglu was about to do so, but she did so for him, adding that she has a very profound relationship with him. Rodia wanted to know what she meant. Zui Baochai told her that they're betrothed. This was a surprise to Rodia and Heathcliff. Honglu saw it as nothing to be surprised about. These profound relationships can be established effortlessly in the simple exchange of agreements between their elders. Rodia complained that he never even gave them a hint. Honglu he saw no point in that, as he wouldn't be married until he left Limbus Company. Zui Baochai apologized for overhearing earlier, asking if they're his friends. She was so curious to hear what kind of life he lived out there, wanting him to share some tales of his journey with her. Ryushu tried to shoo her away. She didn't have stories for children. Zui Baochai, however, loved stories about bloodshed. Honglu told Ryushu that one of her pastimes was curating creepy stories of urban legends. Ryushu, upon knowing this now, was more willing to share some. She certainly had plenty of them this past year, never mind what happened before. Zui Baochai then asked about everyone else. She loves adventure stories. Gregor cautioned her about this. Don Quixote was far more willing to do so, specifically about the big scary bear, likely leaving out the details that this was 200 years ago and that she was a blood fiend that could pass for human. This was irritating to Jia Zichun, telling them that if they're finished with their meals, why don't they go back to their residences? Zui Baochai noticed how angry she was. Last she heard, she lost much of her followers in a large battle. She was so sorry about this. She used more than 3 handkerchiefs wiping her tears away upon hearing that news. That was likely the La Mancha mission. Jia Sichun understood that the Zui family heard it too, telling her that she's not wrong, but it's irrelevant to what she's brought to the family hierarch war. Zui Baochai claimed to be a big fan of her confidence, seeing this as a good look. Jia Sichun then warned Zui Baochai to watch her back as Bayu learned how to sink a knife into the back with that same carefree attitude. Oh, come on, it was hardly his fault. Blame Limbus Company upper management for that. How was he supposed to know ahead of time? Zoe Baichai asked what she meant by that. Honglu summed it up as a small falling out with her. Zoe Baichai understanding that Jia Sichun was trying to get him on her side, because he excelled at whatever he does without stressing out or losing that happy smile. Honglu saw that it worked out that way. Roger saw it as a bit irritating when put like that. Faust made it clear that while this is rare, some are indeed like that. This reminded Zoe Baichai. She asked if he ran into Jia Qiu. Honglu hadn't, as he was incapacitated, but they did. She saw this as good. Clearly they were fortunate that Jia Qiu didn't try to kill them all. She asked what happened. She understood that he was trying to ally with Shi Jihua, although only Shi Jihua saw it that way. Clearly this was well known among the candidates. Honglu casually told her that they cut Shi Jihua's head off when he was with them. She asked if it was horizontally or vertically. Honglu didn't answer. Ryushu said H, which meant horizontally. Zoe Baichai understood this to be the third time this happened. He never knew how to keep his mouth shut. Yeah, it wasn't the first time, so he's likely to be back. Considering that cloning bodies and the bullets are possible ways to get his body back, it was bound to be a temporary setback. She had a feeling that he'd be there where the family hierarch war began. Everyone in Dagyul 1 has heard that song from the backstreets, seeing things as getting awkward and hostile there every time there's any mention of him. She's thankful that she won't be coming towards him, or rather, he won't be coming for her once the competition begins. Urtis asked why that was. Zoe Baichai saw herself as too charming and adorable to kill outright. Urtis stood there in stony silence, as if a response wasn't even deserved. Zoe Baichai understood that Jia Qiu's goals probably have nothing to do with the Zoe family. Honglu could see that. She took a step towards Honglu and she leaned towards him, close to his face, asking if he still remembered the fragrance. Honglu told her that she had never reeked. She told him that she had always been and always will be residing in Hengwu-yan, or ginger plant courts, making him promise to pay her a visit before he left. She then gracefully walked out of the room. Honglu asked if they can head back. That place can get pretty dark around high hour, or the hour of the pig, which is between 2100 hours and 2300 hours. Heathcliff asked why he left. Honglu cheerfully said that it was nothing. He used to play with her when he was a child. She was one of the few there that was actually nice to him. Dante asked where should they head for next. Roger wants to know that, considering the scale of everything there. They should expect something similar. Honglu said that they were his guests, so they should be able to stay at his building there. It's within walking distance, so they should be there in no time at all, even on foot. This building is likely large enough to happily accommodate all of them. Well, in case Honglu had visitors. Eventually, they arrived, and Honglu told them that they were there. Ishmael considered that a long walk, even though it was technically walking distance. Honglu told them that place was called Yihongyuan, Joyous Red Courts. Ah yes, his source materials dream of the red chamber. It was made from the most aromatic flower tree within District 8, likely made with bioengineering considering the singularity. If they try to take a deep breath, they can smell the lovely fragrance of flower aroma pervading, spreading from the very tip of their noses. It's unique to that building. Yisang saw it as unseen and invisible, yet it retains much. Dante saw that it was huge, asking if he was living there alone all along. Apparently, he was told to stay in a larger room, but he preferred that space more. Ziren then reported to Honglu, saying that it has been long. Dante wanted to ask who she was, then Honglu asked if Ziren was well. Ziren confirmed this. She's as she's always been. Dante saw that one as externally emotionless as Masol, as the damned dozen poured into the yard, rowdy as they were. It didn't even change when she saw Honglu, who hadn't been home for some time. She asked if Dante and the damned dozen were her guests. She'll guide them to their room, asking them to follow. Honglu noted that now that they were there, he had somewhere to visit. He'll be there soon. Or rather, be back soon. Don Quixote asked where he was going, wanting to go with him. Honglu didn't see that as necessary. He was just going to say hello and pay his respects to the elders, so it's better for him to go alone. Ziren then directed the others to where they'd be staying. Ishmael could say this about every operation, but the weight of their mission doesn't really sink in until they're actually there. Sinclair assumed that she was talking about the family hierarch war. Ishmael confirmed this. The other candidates have been preparing for years while they had an overnight stay. Rodia was a procrastinate until the last minute kind of girl, so she's sure that they have a handle on this. Massault reminded them that this wasn't the first time that they were demanded to work through a task in an unfavorable, inequitable situation. Okay, let's see. Dealing with guides when one of them betrayed them in District 4. They had to change the plan to break into a casino due to Don Quixote messing things up a few times in District 10. They messed up with Papa Bongi's cooking show until Masol and Otis took over in District 11. And there was also Wuthering Heights with the Wild Hunts in District 20. Those are just a few examples. Otis didn't see this as mattering. Their goal wasn't to claim the throne of the family hierarch. A few hours earlier, before Sard left them in the palanquin, she saw it as a relief that their goal wasn't to come first place in the family hierarch war. And this surprised Don Quixote. Sard asked why would they want one of them to become the head of H-Corps. Otis asked if it would not provide a much more reliable means of control to plant an individual of Limbus Company at the highest seat of a wing, instead of letting an unaffiliated individual assume it. Sol told her that there's a lot more going on behind the scenes. Besides, the Before team has... well, it still has much left to do, as the damned dozen do. Faust clearly knows more than she's saying, and right now she's not talking, as it's too soon. Gregor asks if this wasn't a winner-takes-all situation, asking if other candidates get something for participating. Honglu told him that any that places within the top 10 will gain the right to take one item of their choice from the family treasury. The one who places the highest goes first. Sard reminded them that the plan was to come at least second to ensure that they obtain the item that they're looking for. Heathcliff saw it as weirdly insulting, asking why don't they just shoot for the top anyway. Sard observed that his confidence had increased since their last operation together. Gregor told her that they've been through a lot. That's one way of putting it. Sard asked them if they can guess what's deep inside Hong Yuan's treasury. Ishmael understood that it was the golden bar, and Sard confirmed this. It's buried in the middle of all kinds of other treasures, along with any knowledge of its true value. Back in the present, Urtis asked Faust if she could share with her what their strategy was for the first round. Yi Sang wanted to know this as well, as there was mutual understanding between her and Sard. Faust told them that the first round will test what they've prepared and brought for the elders of Hongguan. Dante understood that what Jia Sichun was referring to earlier, and Faust confirmed this, something that had to do with being free from aging and death. Immortality. Each candidate was to present an answer before the judge to demonstrate their idea of true immortality. Dante asked what the answer to that was. Faust admitted that it's the one of the few things that she doesn't have the answer for, and this annoyed Urtis, as if that's the case, what are they even doing there? Faust told them that they might be able to demonstrate some measure of this, or at least pretend as though they're close to the answer, believing that those seeking that answer won't disqualify them, or more specifically Hong Lu, from the competition. Urtis understanding that they'll cling onto whatever clue that they can get, mostly out of desperation than anything. This was what Faust was getting at. Heathcliff believed that Jia Mu will give him bonus points, due to her favouring Hong Lu. Urtis understanding that Hong Lu's role in this is just this. And this was just as Faust was about to confirm this, Hong Lu appeared and told them that they were right. It was his turn to be used. This surprised Sinclair, asking when he got back. He walked into this conversation as if he has stealth skills that would rival Batman's. Dante was surprised that he was back so soon. They saw what Urtis said as quite crass, depending on how it's put. They told him not to mind what she just said. Honglu asked why would he mind this? His use was to be the ticket to participating in the Hierarch War, the only option for obtaining the Golden Bower and H-Core. She wasn't wrong. Dante didn't like how he put that, his use. Honglu saw it this way. If they'll use him, hopefully it'll lead to an outcome that they'll be happy with. Don Quixote wasn't so sure, as Jia Sichun was deeply hurt by their upper management's decision to make Hong Lu their candidate rather than her. Hong Lu considered his sister. While his eyes twinkled briefly as though he was shifting into a dream, he didn't think that it was possible for him to be friends with her again. They're back to not being on speaking terms again, but briefly it was as if he was back in time when they were both children. But they can't go back to the past. It's just as well that time travel doesn't exist, as if the head got their hands on that, they could get rid of threats such as Lobotomy Corporation before they became a potential threat. It's dangerous enough in the hands of those that behave responsibly with it. Then we see a memory of his past, where Jia Sichun was surprised by what he was saying, initially suspecting that he was drunk, because he said that. Then remembering that it was a stupid thing to ask. He's never been drunk. His mind had always been clear. None of it mattered to him, even when she gets angry or when she shouts at him like that. None of it gets to him, does it? Asking what happened to him that day. How can someone become so... And just as something was about to be said, she told him to forget it. Telling him to do whatever he wants. It's her fault for expecting to have at least one normal sibling in that messed up family. Even then, the hushed anger was met by his smile. Back in the present, Dante asked if he didn't want to be friends with her again. He saw that, in the end, these connections between people are just moments, ephemeral things, so what he wants doesn't matter. Straw nihilism detected. Dante saw that Honglu, he seemed so aloof and detached that it feels as though he's always floating through the clouds. This seems to be the kind of guy he was, above everything happening to him. Instead of just another messed up person with messed up problems of their own. Dante slowly and gradually realized that something was off about him under the surface. Dante then asked him about participating in the family hierarchy war. Does he really not feel anything about it, excluding himself from it? He doesn't, and he had. It's how things worked out. Urtis reminded Dante that his value judgment has no influence on the company's direction. At least nothing that matters. Faust reminded them that they had no right to refuse their missions. Yi-san couldn't deny this, but this didn't mean that he could ignore the suffering of others, stemming from their obligations. Honglu saw unnecessary peering into his suffering as how it gets worse. Yi-san wasn't sure what he meant by that. Honglu explained that back then, when he lived there, so many choices passed before his eyes. Should he kill the child of a different family? Should he survive? Should he walk past the dying boy, or should he help them? When they were first presented to him, he tried to make a choice, but it didn't take that long for him to realize that his choices meant nothing. So he decided not to choose at all. That's who he is now. There were so many wonderful things about joining Limbus Company, but the favourite part was that he was never given a choice. Dante looked at him as if they wanted to say, "What the are you saying?" Ishmael sees that as pretty weird. Honglu saw that things had gotten weirdly quiet. Faust saw this as enough discussion of private matters. There was much ground to cover. She started a discussion at that point of the plan for the first round. The next morning, Dante noted that there was still some time until they have to leave. Yi-sang asked what the purpose of those scarecrows were. He didn't see that clearly at night. Honglu saw that they were still there. He informed them that they were in the training courts that was next to every building where children of that place lives. Every child of walking, running age all get to play with those dummies. We usually saw this as important early education. Either that's typical of where she came from, or that was just her upbringing. Don Quixote asked how they played with the dummies. One of them even has a hat on. Honglu told her that this was the first dummy that he received when he was 7. Back then, he thought that dummies could feel pain when struck. Yi-sang saw this as blissful. Rodia was surprised that it was a tradition for children born there to formally learn to fight. Honglu told her, "Not exactly." Then a memory of the past flashed into their perception. Honglu's younger brother saw the dummy that their grandfather, their grandmother gifted him. Jia Bayu didn't know how it worked. Dayu thought it to be a doll or effigy to dress up. suggesting trinkets be adorned on it. His brother thought that it was a guardian spirit that protected the house. Then an older male appeared and showed them how it was done, punching the training dummy. Dayu asked why he punched their grandmother's gift. Jia Bayu asked if he's not hurting it. The older male didn't think much of doing that to a wooden thing. Back in the present, Honglu told them that it's more that they have to grow up that way if they want to survive. Ryushu approved of the WTD, or wooden training dummy, as did Urutis, who saw it as an example of precise engineering craftsmanship. They still have some time until departure, so she suggested that they use them for a warm-up exercise. Roger complained about getting all sweaty. Ishmael didn't see them as posing any danger. They can try them out, just to see how they're doing that day. Urutis then told them that they have orders from Dante. They'll do all that they can to lay utter ruin onto those training dummies. Dante made it clear that they didn't give any order to do so, but didn't see it as necessary to correct her. She ordered them to charge, and then they fought the training dummies, which also fought back. Well, they've dealt with worse, and they defeated the training dummies, which likely have some kind of self-repair capability, if they were subject to this a lot in childhood. And they've lasted this long. After the training session, Urutis found this refreshing. Gregor admitted that morning workouts really do wake you up. Ishmael admitted that they've, gotten so used to fighting before they get to the main part of the mission that mornings felt incomplete without some action. Massault saw this as a meaningful warm-up activity. Sinclair was then meaning to ask Honglu, why did he never consider participating in the family hierarch war before? All his other siblings have been waiting and training all their lives for this event. Honglu told him that it was simple. It was because he never thought that he wanted to be the family hierarch. In the past, Lady Wang found it most fortunate that had he not been born with the jade, he would have had to toil all his life, preparing for the family hierarch war like his other siblings did. He wouldn't need to waste his strength on these things to win the favor of the elders and his grandmother. All he had to do was witness as much of the world as it had to offer. Back in the present, Dante saw that more memories were appearing. Yi Sang was distraught, and Dante wanted to know why. Yi Sang told them that it had to do with Faust's plan, discussed to them last night. Sinclair shared his unease, understanding that Honglu was okay with that. Ishmael asked if it can be called a plan. Yes, if it can even be called it. Massault certainly thought so, as it illustrates certain instructions to be followed for the purpose of achieving a defined goal. Faust made it clear that there are no second chances in the family hierarch war. Well, the preparations for the first round are made. They just need to follow through with that plan. Until next time. Hail the rabbit!